so proud of Zack. I'm so happy for Zack. Zack, for the newly initiated here on the sheet, is our producer from day one. Also host of Leafs After Dark. Also sometimes host of Leafs Morning Take. Zack, I was very proud of you yesterday. You had a chance, and we'll hear the interview, the Nickel and Dime interview that I did later on. You had a chance to interview an idol, to interview someone that you pattern a major portion of your life after, and that is you had a chance to talk to Mats Sundin.
Yep.
Yesterday, it was you and Nick, right? Alberga?
Yeah.
I haven't gone back. I'm going to listen to it after the program today. So we'll hear my interview, my little pithy 15 minutes with Sundin here in a couple of seconds. But I don't really remember having that type of experience. Like when I did the Dan Carlin podcast, that might have been the most nervous I've ever been for a podcast, because to me, that's like winning podcast fantasy camp. Like to me, Dan Carlin is the Cadillac of podcasters. And to be invited on his show was like, ooh, wow, this is incredible. But tell us about, before we get rolling on the show here, A, what Mats Sundin meant to you, and B, what it was like interviewing Mats Sundin, and C, has the swelling gone down yet?
It was one of the coolest experiences ever. Like I explained to you, I've not really been that nervous at any points in my career. I have no problem public speaking and doing this kind of stuff, hence how I got here. But there's been 3 times I've been nervous to do shows, and they've all varied differently. But the first one was the first time I hosted Leafs Morning Take in fill-in for Nick Alberga, and did it with Rosie. Just because it was a different setting and I was on that channel. Doing my show never really fazed me. I just jumped in and kept doing it. The second one was when I did the first show with you. Part of it was because of what the show was, who you are, and also I was like, I don't want to be the reason this thing goes off the air.
The way you're supposed to say that now is, and because of who you think you are.
No.
Not who you are.
You are Jeff Marek. You are...
Anyway.
But anyway. The final one was Mats Sundin yesterday, and that's the most nervous I've ever been. I wanted to be Mats Sundin as a kid. Like, I wanted to be a Maple Leaf, but more specifically, I wanted to be Mats Sundin. I wore number 13. I wanted to play center. My parents still say to this day, if I started crying, there was 2 ways to get me to stop crying. Put me down in front of the TV, and if there was no hockey, they had to put on the Jungle Book, and that was it. If there wasn't those two things, I was crying. And they said by the time I was 2 years old, I could name every player on the Leafs, and it was like, it's just Mats Sundin was the guy for me. I spent a lot of time here gushing about it to open the program, but to sit down and actually speak with him myself was one of the coolest experiences that I've had so far in my career. I'm so thankful to get the platform and the opportunity to do it. That was beyond cool.
So if you haven't already, go out and watch/listen to Zack's interview alongside Nick Alberga of Mats Sundin. That's what I'm going to do after the show today, is go and check that one out, because this is you entered that interview a boy, but you left a man. Zack, is that how you felt afterwards?
No, we'll see.
Now I can slay
I'm scared
dragons.
to watch it back because I'm worried that my nervousness came through, so I don't even know yet if it did. I had some texts from people saying that it was good, it did a good job, so I appreciate that, but awesome. I'm a little nervous to even watch it myself because I'm like, what did I sound like? Is my voice cracking? I don't know.
Go back and watch it 2 years later, and that way you can have a little bit of distance between it. Anyhow, happy for you and very proud of you, as I'm sure your family is as well, and all of your longtime listeners and viewers. Okay, let's get right to the show, because I want to air our version of this of the interview with Mats Sundin here. So the Blueprint, as we all know, is powered by FanDuel. Download the app today and play your game on FanDuel. Coming up on the program, Mats Sundin making the rounds after Auston Matthews broke his record of the most goals scored by a Toronto Maple Leaf. Mats Sundin, we sat down with Mats yesterday morning, and you'll hear that interview in a couple of seconds. He does talk about Auston Matthews and a number of other things, including, but not exclusive to, his trade to Toronto. And we kind of got both sides here inside of a month. When we were doing one of our Del Manor events, Wendell Clark shared his. We put that up against Boreas Salmings. Second time I've done that. Against Mats Sundin's version of what happened and how he found out. Shayna Goldman is going to stop by. I haven't had Shayna on for a few weeks. We're going to remedy that today. So Shayna, of course, from the Too Many Men podcast, she writes at The Athletic. You know her, you love her, does occasional work here and elsewhere. A sort of tour around the NHL as the NHL is now at the halfway point. And then we're going to talk about international hockey, and we're going to talk about Team Canada and USA as well. The final in the World Juniors, as we all predicted, Czechia facing off against Team Sweden. Another thing that we're going to add to the program today, this just coming in a second ago, Dan MacKenzie is going to stop by. Dan is, you've seen and heard Dan here before, the president of the Canadian Hockey League. And we'll talk about the career of Dave Branch, who passed away yesterday at the age of 77. Up until Brian Crawford took over, I never knew another commissioner of the OHL other than Dave Branch. As a fan, I knew him. I mean, he started as a commissioner of the OHL in 1979. He's the only one that I've ever known. I was a longtime president of the CHL as well. Helped shepherd in a lot of changes, whether it is academic scholarships, whether it is mental health initiatives, violence curbing in the OHL specifically. Was a coach himself in the Whitby Minor Hockey Association, which is about 20 minutes away from me. So I want to talk to Dan about his predecessor, the now deceased, the late Dave Branch, who was honestly, again, in hockey circles, everybody knows Dave. And everybody knew Dave, and he was a giant in an industry full of giants. And I always admired the fact that he was there for a long time. Like, that's what you want from your commissioner. Someone who's, in for a penny, in for a pound, where some people may look at a title like that and say like, yeah, I'll be the commissioner of the OHL for like 5 or 6 years and then move on and do something else. Dave, like others, Ron Robison and Gilles Courteau, were in it for the long haul. So we'll talk about the career of Dave Branch with Dan MacKenzie coming up here in a little bit on the sheet. In the meantime, yesterday's big news around these parts was I had a chance to sit down with Mats Sundin, former Maple Leaf, former Vancouver Canuck, former Quebec Nordique, former gold medal winner with Team Sweden, and talked to him about the record that has now fallen after 18 seasons. Mats Sundin now number 2 all-time amongst Maple Leafs goal scorers, Auston Matthews with the pair in a losing effort against the New York Islanders on Saturday. Here's my conversation yesterday with Mats Sundin. Budweiser Zero and Mats Sundin are marking Auston Matthews' record-breaking moment by celebrating the Kings of Assists, because behind every goal, there's a Bud who made it possible. Pleased to be joined by Mats Sundin right now, Hockey Hall of Famer, and the man that held the record up until Saturday, 2-goal performance by Auston Matthews. I am curious because, Mats, you held this record for 18 years. You're a proud captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs for a long time. What went through your mind when Auston Matthews finally broke the record?
Finally, I was thinking. I thought it was going to break it earlier before Christmas. So, no, I'm sure he just the way I really can sense how he felt, just to try to get it behind him and focus on the important things in the midst of a important season and try to win points for Toronto instead of focusing on breaking records. I think it's something he's going to recognize even more once his career is over. But I'm sure he's relieved, and myself, records are made to be broken. So I'm very glad that it's Auston breaking my goal scoring record for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's a fantastic player and an even better person and a captain.
Mats, I'm really glad you said that because, the record that you broke was Daryl Sittler's. And when I was a kid, Daryl, my 3 favorites were Mike Palmateer, Borje Salming, and Daryl Sittler. Salming may be my favorite out of all of them. But I can recall being a kid and, he broke Davey Keon's record. I thought how cool that was. And I like that you said that, records are meant to be broken, because I believe that every generation of fan should think that their players are the best and breaking all the records from before. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. I think that's a natural way for it to go. And then some records are going to be harder to break, obviously. But yeah, if Ovechkin can break Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record, any record can be broken. So we know that. And, different eras, different types of hockey. Some areas are going to be more goal scoring because of different reasons, rules, players. Yeah. But players are more talented today. The game is faster. We got rid of hooking and holding, and trying to slow down our skilled players, and very glad to see Auston breaking my goal record with Toronto.
And none of it gets done without teammates, and the lion's share of Auston's goals certainly helped along by someone like Mitch Marner. I am curious because you had a number of wingers when you played in Toronto, and I think a lot of people liked you with Gary Roberts, and a lot of people liked you with Alexander McGillney. I always loved you with Michael Wennberg. I thought Wennberg was really underrated. The way he would lean on defensemen all game long, and then the third period would show up, and the other team's D would be exhausted because there's big, heavy Wennberg leaning on them. Like, do you have like one of your line mates who you thought never really got their due and was really underrated?
Well, I think you mentioned Alex McGillney, and I look back at that. When he came to Toronto, he was at the end of his career, and it was too bad we couldn't get him to Toronto in his prime at 26, 27, or even earlier. But you like you said, goal scorers and players are never better than your line mates, the people that pass you the puck, the playmakers, but the complete team. And if you're looking to win a championship, whether it's Olympic gold or winning a Stanley Cup, you're never going to get further than you need a complete team, from goaltending to defense to forwards, to be able to get through, because the competition is so hard. And I'm sure Auston Matthews, you look at the players he's been around for these years, breaking my goal scoring record. He has some great teammates that helped him achieve this great goal.
One of the things that I've always enjoyed about, living in Toronto and around Toronto, watching the Maple Leafs as a kid, I can still recall, as I mentioned, Börje Salming and Inge Hammerstrom. Like, they were the big two in the NHL for a long time, and then there were more with the Jets and the WHA, and then Kent Nilsson became one of my favorites. And even to this day, there's William Nylander on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I love that for a while there, Peter Forsberg was the best power forward in the NHL, and Nick Lidstrom can lay claim to being the best defenseman of all time in the NHL. When you think about Swedish hockey, the history of it in the NHL, and where it's at now, what goes through your mind?
Well, I think Sweden should be very proud, and the National Hockey League as well. But for a small country, smaller than a lesser population, or pretty much the same as Ontario, I think a little bit less Sweden is. Since the Börje Salming era, who paved the way for my generation, Lidstrom, myself, Peter Forsberg, and others, to when you look at it today, someone told me that it's over 80 players that started in the starting rosters this year in the National Hockey League. I think there's over 100 that is in and out of the lineup. And when you look at the future for Swedish hockey, right now there's three of the top players in the World Juniors are Swedes as well. Some, Anton Frondell and Ivar Stenberg and Viggo Björk. So Sweden has a very strong hockey program. I'm very proud to be a part of the area that I was in, but Swedish hockey is doing well, and we're still producing great players. And so the system is very strong right now in Sweden for developing hockey players.
I'm glad you mentioned those three as well, and specifically Viggo Björk, who's just been like every single game for Sweden in this tournament. He's been the best player for Sweden. He might not be the biggest guy. I keep saying that. If he's 6'2", he's going first overall, but he's been nothing short of outstanding. I want to ask you about captaincy too, because as you mentioned, there's a lot of things around being the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I've heard plenty of stories about how you handled the room and how you handled players. There was one I was reminded of recently where Pat Quinn wanted to close the door on a bus and just leave, but there was a player late, and you said, Pat, no, I will handle it. We will handle this as a team, and that player was never late to the bus. To the bus again. What type of extra pressure is there when you're the captain of this team?
Well, you almost need to have been a player in Toronto to understand what representing Toronto in the National Hockey League is like. But it's different than anywhere else in the hockey world. I think we both know that. Players that come to Toronto, it doesn't matter if they're Canadian or even growing up in Ontario or in the city, once they put on that sweater, they're like, oh my God, wow, I didn't realize the media following and the interest for the team. So it's different, and it comes with certain things that you have to handle that has nothing to do with what's going on the ice, really in terms of answering for the team's performance. And I think Auston has done a fantastic job. And, I look at some of the best leaders that I play with and played against, including Joe Sakic in the beginning of my career, Nicholas Lidstrom, first European captain, I think, to win a Stanley Cup with Detroit, watching Scott Niedermayer all those years, and Doug Gilmour, and most of them very quiet in the dressing room, and there's no secret. Doesn't just relate to hockey, but you lead by example, and all great leaders that I've known and played with in the National Hockey League and in the national team have those characteristics. And I know Auston is the same way. He leads by example on the ice, and he's a great teammate, and I know the respect he has among his teammates. So he's doing a great job in a very tough position, being the captain in Toronto.
And you draw the toughest assignments too. It's always the first line players that are out there against you. I remember, like, one of my favorite things to watch in your era was watching you play against Bobby Holik. It's like, all right, here comes Mats Sundin and Bobby Holik. It's going to be miserable for everybody. And as a fan, you're just going to enjoy watching it. Who are the toughest guys? Two things. Who are the toughest guys to play against for you that always gave you fits? And two, I had heard that you lobbied the Maple Leafs to try to bring in Bobby Holik as well. Was that true?
I'm getting old, but I don't remember doing that, getting Bobby Holik to the Leafs. I don't remember trying to lobby him for that. But we were, our era, the Devils had a fantastic team. They won the Stanley Cup a few times when we ran into them in the second round, I think, a few times, and we took them to 6 and 7 games. But the combination of Scott Stevens and Niedermayer there, where you have one really solid, strong defensive defenseman to try to hurt the forwards, and then you have Scott Niedermayer on his side that actually beat forwards up the ice and could carry the puck and be a playmaker. So I would say playing against the Devils, and then once you beat them, you had Martin Brodeur back there, arguably the best goaltender in the league at the time. Ray Bourque comes to mind. Unbelievable respect for what kind of a player, what kind of career Ray Bourque had as a defenseman. And then I always talk about Nicholas Lidstrom, my fellow countryman, that I had to play all the time when we played Detroit. And Nicholas had his own way. I don't think he threw a hit in his 22-year career.
Didn't have to.
But was never out of position, poked the puck away from the best forwards, and was miserable to play against. And you realize after the game that it wasn't that hard of a game, but we still lost. And Nicholas was +4. And they all did it in different ways.
They really did. One of the things when we think about goal scoring, we think about hockey sticks. I know I certainly do. And I can recall there was that era and everybody started grabbing them. Remember the era where everybody on your team, and it seemed at times like you were the only one that really knew how to use it, grabbed all those TPS XN10s, and like everybody tried, and taking a pass was hard, and then guys would throw bullets at you and you would take it no problem, fire the puck. What do you remember from that era where everybody was hopping on the XN10 train?
Well, they were breaking in the beginning, and I had I used a very I had a hard flex on my sticks, and I remember they were fine in stick handling and taking wrist shots and passes. But once you try to do a one-timer, they broke in the beginning. But sticks came a long way, and even shooting techniques. And nowadays you see, which I think is important, the one-timers, and especially on power plays and getting the puck to the net quick. Goaltenders are so good nowadays, and players are great getting in the line of the shot. So the quicker you can get the puck to the net, the better chance you have in scoring. But sticks came a long way from when I played, and we kind of started the era of the carbon and the alumni stick in the beginning, and the newer models.
Man, you guys fired them. Okay, last question for you. I recently did an event with Wendell Clark. And one of the questions I asked Wendell was, where were you when you found out about the trade?
I was shooting a Cheerios commercial in Mississauga. So I drove back to the city. I'm at the Esso station. Not that it's a big deal that I remember I was at Front and Bathurst when I got traded. At the Esso station. And I turned the radio station on to see who we drafted.
That's right, because the Hartford draft was on.
The draft was on, so I was, well, I wonder who we drafted. Right. So I turned the radio station on, and that's when I heard I got traded to Quebec on the radio station.
Where were you when you found out that you had been moved from the Nordiques to the Maple Leafs?
Well, it was kind of funny. I was actually in a fishing. I was fly fishing in a stream about 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers outside Kiruna, the hometown of Boris Halming, because I was up there for Boris Hockey School. Wow. And we're standing there fly fishing, and there's a helicopter coming in, and I'm there with my brothers, and we're like, what's going on here? And there's a TV team, a guy jumps out of the helicopter in a white T-shirt and jeans, a reporter, and the poor camera guy, same outfit, and there was mosquitoes and black flies, and they got eaten alive. They did the interview in about 27 seconds, and they jumped back to the helicopter, and they left. So I'll never forget that, the moment I got traded.
So they were the ones that told you?
Yeah, they broke the story. Hey, you've been traded to the Leafs. What do you think about that? Yeah.
Wow. Times have changed. And speaking of times have changed, as a new goal-scoring king in Toronto. Mats, you're always generous with your time. I thank you very much for stopping by with me today. Much appreciated. And I know there's a big birthday party happening at your house, so we'll let you get back to your son's birthday. Thanks so much for this.
Thanks for having me.
There he is, Mats Sundin, the new number 2 amongst Toronto Maple Leafs goal scorers. Yeah, so one was fly fishing, one was pumping gas. Guess which one was from Saskatchewan. Guess which one was from Sweden. We thank Mats Sundin for stopping by the program today, and our friends at Budweiser for making him available. A couple of things here. I do want to get a couple of thoughts in on what we saw at the World Juniors over the weekend specifically. And again, like bronze medal game was this afternoon, gold medal game, Czechia and Sweden coming up later on tonight. A couple of thoughts on the state of Canadian junior hockey. There's a couple of pithy observations that I want to sort of share with people. And if we have time, I do want to talk about the suspensions that we saw over the weekend, the one-gamers for the sucker punches, one with Logan Stanley and one with John Beecher. In the meantime, I want to bring aboard Shayna Goldman, but first want to remind you this segment is a presentation of Bauer and the Bauer Pulse, the first Bauer stick to feature their latest kick point innovation. Powered by 2 distinct energy zones in the shaft, the stick is designed to adapt to your game with the loadability and precision of a mid kick and the explosive unexpected release of a low kick. Catch goaltenders by surprise with a quick shot they'll never see coming, or make dynamic plays in the zone that will have defenders scrambling. Combine all that with the new raised grip ink on the shaft, and the Pulse will stay in your hands while you put the game in your hands. Exclusive to Bauer Hockey, the Pulse contains ultra-lightweight and rigid boron fiber material, which creates a high strength-to-weight ratio and optimizes energy storage and increases reactivity. Featured on 40 Flex sticks and above. For more information, check out Bauer.com. And with that, we'll bring her in. You recognize it from this
Jeff.
program. Oh, we're standing by for Shayna. I'm getting the hold up here.
We're just fixing something. 1 second. Sorry about that.
Shayna's getting fixed up here before she joins the broadcast. So a couple of things quickly with the Canadian situation, and probably more on this. Like, I don't know that it's going to be a massive hand-wringing amongst Hockey Canada. We'll see. But this is another early exit of the World Junior Hockey Championship. I think ultimately, more than anything else, when you look at Team Canada, and most specifically in the game against Czechia yesterday, this team couldn't defend. Right? Jack Ivankovic, even though he surrendered a ton of goals yesterday, Jack Ivankovic was not to blame, the Nashville Predators goaltending prospect. This was a team that in their own zone had a really hard time. And you saw it every single time, and specifically in the third period, you saw it every single time there was a zone entry against Canada. It was panic time, panic time, panic time, house on fire, and Canada really didn't know what to do. And I'll tell you, there used to be, growing up, there was always the feeling that European hockey was too much soft skill and there wasn't enough competitiveness in them for them to win. Right now, if you just look at this tournament and you look at how outside of Brady Martin, Team Canada played, that's flipped. Team Canada got outworked. Team Canada got out hustled. And Team Canada just wanted to borrow a Nash phrase, skill it up all tournament long. And as one person pointed out to me, the reason that Brady Martin stood out on Team Canada, the reason that Brady Martin, again, another Nashville prospect, plays the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds of the OHL, why he seemed like he was a unicorn is because Team Canada, when they're winning gold medals every single year, had 8 Brady Martins on the team. More discussion to come on this issue. Canada faces off against Finland for the bronze later on this afternoon, which is a great way to bring on Shayna Goldman, who's probably all smiles about this. From the Too Many Men podcast and also The Athletic, Shayna Goldman joins me now. Hello, Shayna.
Hey, what would I be all smiles about?
I don't know. Canadian tears?
I mean, didn't USA have to go out first for that to happen?
Well, they won, Canada won one extra game. At least, like, the way that USA went out with, a couple of bad injuries. Well, first of all, they didn't get any goaltending. USA, Cole Hudson gets injured in that freakish, scary accident with the shot in the back of the head, and Max Plant is out. I know that expectations are always to win gold, but that was going to be tough. Trevor Connolly out even before the tournament started. But this was supposed to be like the pathway for Canada. And they got, like, all of a sudden now, the Swedes look like they're playing like old school Canadians, and so do the Czechs. They just grind you into the ground. Just grind you right into the ice. And it's an amazing thing that we see happening, at least at the junior level, with international hockey. Anyhow, how are you? Nice to see you again.
It's been a while, right?
Yeah, it's been a few weeks. We got to get this back more regular. Where to begin with here? I want to get your thoughts on a team that every now and then when we write them off, we remind ourselves it's the fool that bets against the Tampa Bay Lightning. That no matter what the injuries are, what the hardships are, what the bad play is, Tampa is going to be all right. And I can't help but thinking to myself, this might be, although there were other seasons where Jon Cooper probably should have won Coach of the Year, like this would have to cinch it, right? With all the injuries, won 7 in a row, top of the table, all of it. All of a sudden, Mosier is elite, and Darren Radish is elite, and now Braden Point has come back around. Do you have a thought on what we're seeing with Tampa right now?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they had a great regular season last year, but it's so interesting. I feel like the really good teams, it's like, what's the new challenge for the season? Like, what's the hurdle you're going to have to cross, right? Like, the Avs is going to be, how do you win in the playoffs when you don't face as much regular season adversity? For the Lightning, it's, how are you going to keep doing this when you have no cap space, no assets, and now a million injuries? And then add in the top-end talent, not playing like the top-end talent with Braden Point start, and it's really incredible what they've done. I think Jon Cooper deserves a ton of credit because we've seen not just the players and the supporting cast interchange, but a lot of the coaching staff too, right? And, names like Derek Lalonde have been talked about a lot with the penalty kill in Toronto and what he did in Detroit. And you think about how well it clicked under Jon Cooper. And I think he deserves more credit for that too. It feels like coaches get hit because they have elite talent, right? But you have to know how to coach elite talent. You have to know how to put them in the right position. You need to know what to do with the bottom 6. And now this year, to bring in players from the Syracuse Crunch, and let's face it, these are not top draft picks. They haven't had that in years. It's a thinner prospect pool, but you get creative, you stick to the system, and it all works, and that's what they're doing.
It's been a fun story to follow for the longest time here too. And listen, they've played pretty much like the majority of the season without Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough, and that opened up the door for JJ Mosier and opened the door for Darren Radish as well. Do you have a thought on the latest 2 studs on the back end for the Tampa Bay Lightning, as we all predicted?
Oh, I really want to get into JJ Mosier because I think he's such an interesting player because when they acquired him, he had played really tough minutes in Arizona. His numbers were
Circuit trade, so everyone knows,
Yeah. So with that, it was a little bit risky because he didn't have this incredible track record. And also he had experience playing on the right, but he didn't have the greatest results on the right. And you really didn't know how much of it was the team around him, the system, or just the outright usage because he was playing, against such top competition without a ton of support. I think he was very good on the right last year, but I think it's so interesting to see how well he's played on both sides of the lineup. When Victor Hedman was in, that pair was really, really good, and he was on the right. But now he's on his natural side, and it opens up this really interesting question of, like, what do you do with him long term? Do you keep him on the right this year? Do you look for a righty for Victor Hedman when he's back and let Moser, carry his own pair on the left? Or is he just the succession plan because, Hedman and McDonough are getting up there, that soon he'll be their top left defenseman? It's so interesting. We don't always see defensemen shift sides because so many coaches are stuck on, you need to play on your natural side. Here's someone who's just thriving on both sides, and now it's a really good question for the Lightning to figure out the rest of the year and, now beyond with that extension.
Well, one of the things that I've always been told by coaches about defensemen playing on their quote unquote wrong side is, yeah, you can do it in the offensive zone. Guys can play on their backhand and all that. He said the one area where you really get caught is when you're coming around the net. If you're coming around on your wrong side, that extra split second when the forecheck is coming on, that F1 is flying, that's where you can get caught, because it's that extra second to make that first pass when you're coming out from around the net. That's where I've noticed a lot of coaches are sensitive. But I agree with, play your wrong side on the. They do it on the power play. This was the lesson of the Russians in the 70s, right? How they all played sticks in the middle. Because, Canadians were always stick to the outside, protect the puck, keep it to the wall, keep it away. And the Russians in the 70s, especially on the power play, were like, we want our sticks in the middle so we can always shoot, right? That's the great lesson.
And better shooting angles right there.
And better shooting angles, yeah. Absolutely. I'm curious who you think is a myth and who you think is legit here. Let me throw a couple of teams at you. Detroit Red Wings. And let me preface this by saying I had a conversation with someone yesterday, had a great line to me. We're talking about Steve Yzerman and what he still wants to do with this team. And this person said to me, Jeff, don't forget, Steve Yzerman is not Bill Guerin. Steve Yzerman is not Bill Guerin. I mean, he had a chance to be Bill Guerin with Quinn Hughes, but he wasn't going to part with what Bill Guerin did. I still think that they want one more top six forward, probably a center, like everybody else. And they want one more top 4D, probably a veteran. So I don't think that they're done yet, but are they getting close to Shayna Goldman saying, yeah, Detroit's legit?
Okay, hold on. Bill Guerin wasn't Bill Guerin until the Quinn Hughes trade, because every single thing he's done in the years up to this point fit in the whole Steve Yzerman box of this is boring, do more, please.
But he was in salary cap prison. He couldn't do anything.
That's his
He was in
fault.
salary cap jail. Now that he's got a little flexibility, all of a sudden it's like every Friday have 2 Saturdays. It's party time with Bill Guerin. What's he going to do next?
Listen, keep going, make it interesting. But no, I'm waiting for Steve Yzerman to do something. I think at past deadlines we've seen, it was, I think 2 years ago, he didn't do anything, and it was like, this was the moment, do something. But he really didn't think the team was ready. And you're like, okay, fine. Last year they didn't do anything, and you're like, just give him that push. If he doesn't do something this year, then I literally do not know what to tell you, because this is the year to go for it. I think that Atlantic, we've seen it's wide open. Detroit has built himself up a really great lead so far, and it's not like the team is perfect, right? I think you're seeing right now in the top 6 that DeBrincat line is carrying the Red Wings. That Larkin line really hasn't been producing like we've expected them to over the last really month now. So yes, they need a top 6 forward, no question about it. Another defenseman would be great for them. It's going to be pricey, but if any team has the assets, it's them, right? You don't have to necessarily take 3 first-round picks and throw them in the garbage for a rental out there. I think that the Red Wings are in this interesting position because they're one of the few teams that could acquire someone who could fit into the long-term plans too. So definitely want to see them, take a jump this year because they're legitimately good. There's some really promising things going on here, and I think it starts on that back end with Seider, Edvinsson. They are fantastic.
Seider, Norris, legit. I know Cale Makar is running away with this thing, but outside of Cale Makar, remove him from the equation. Seider in that Norris conversation?
He's in 2 conversations for me, and I'm going to be writing about both of these things over the next month. First, I'm putting him in the Hart Trophy race. I know Nathan MacKinnon's going to win it. I totally understand it. And
Whoa. You think Nathan MacKinnon wins it right now?
Who do you think wins it right now?
Macklin Celebrini.
I don't think Celebrini wins it right now, but I think he should be in it because it's going to come down to the whole definition, right? Do you view it as the most valuable player in the league?
Yes,
or the most
not
valuable
the best
player to their team?
No, the most valuable player to their team, the definition of the trophy, right? If you just go by the actual definition of the trophy, this is Macklin Celebrini's. Like, he doubles the second leading scorer on the San Jose Sharks. You can't say that about Connor McDavid. You can't say that about Nathan MacKinnon. But I'm curious to hear your. I would actually be closer to giving it to Cale Makar than Nathan MacKinnon, but I'm curious your rationale for Moritz Seider.
I mean, he's been absolutely incredible for them. Like, he to me is this like stabilizing force on the back end. He is the reason they are as good as they are defensively, and he plays big minutes. He is helping thread the needle offensively too. He does everything. He's great in all situations. Like, to me, he is last year, the year before it, I would have given it to Dylan Larkin. And I love, when you get that option of not just the best players, but you actually get to have this conversation. Like, last year for me, Nick Suzuki, I think, was my number 5. Seider right now is top 3 for me, without a doubt. And Celebrini up there too. This is, I think, potentially running Thursday, early next week. Like, here are the guys that should be in the race because they're most valuable to their team. So I'm going to have like more on it then. But I think Seider's in that, and I think he should be in the Norris conversation because, again, you're going to get into now the conversation with that award of what is the Norris Trophy? Is it the best defenseman, or is it truly the best all-around guy? And Makar is up there. Like, Makar is unbelievable, don't get me wrong, but I think you have a different conversation now this year because of guys like Seider and Sanderson that are that more traditional mold, but they're legitimately that good. We're not just going like, okay, look, they play big minutes and they block shots.
Is this... I mean, this is the season where Moritz Seider has sort of, even for casual hockey fans, popped. Like, everyone's sort of starting to get it here now. I mean, we've all watched Moritz Seider play for the Detroit Red Wings, not miss a game, which we should point out as well. Like, from the hop, boom, Moritz Seider is playing. And just get top assignment after top assignment. I would always be like, man, I would hate to be, of all trainers, therapists, doctors in the NHL, I'd hate to be Detroit's just to see Moritz Seider at the end of a season after getting like such heavy elite level usage out of the Detroit Red Wings. Why this season with Seider?
I mean, I think they adjusted his usage. What was it when Todd McClellan took over? Like, instead of burying him as much as it was, but like he's still playing those assignments, but it just felt like the usage was overdone. They were just drowning the guy. I think having a more capable partner this year definitely helps, and Edvinsson has been that and more. I think he's grown a ton in the last year. But you just look at what he does, and it's, he's good at defending the blue line. He's great at retrieving pucks, and he's just a workhorse who can do a little bit of everything, right? It's not as flashy. And I think sometimes we get distracted by that, right? Like, the Quinn Hugheses and Cale Makars of the world are the top 2 defensemen in the league for good reason. But when you get to that next little tier, and it's the Rasmus Dahlins and the Miro Heiskanens, it's what you don't see sometimes. And that's harder to measure, and it's harder for those guys to pop. And Seider's in that category because he's not the most prolific scorer, right? But it's what doesn't happen. How the hell do you measure that? What doesn't happen, right? It's such a challenge. But you just see the little things and what he does to get his team activated back offensively, because it's not the deepest forward group in the league, and I think he really helps them and supports them. He's just like a stabilizing facilitator. He's a little bit of everything, and I think it's just great to see him coming into that role and getting the attention for it, because he's been good for so long, but it just feels like it's coming together on a different level finally this year.
Remember when Steve Yzerman drafted him in Vancouver and everyone thought he was nuts?
Listen,
went,
I'm not a prospect expert, so it was like, okay. I was like, all right, everyone's, dramatic about it, but I'm just like, all right, and I just kind of breeze that one off. Like, that's not my thing.
Where do you think Andrew Mangiapane ends up, and why is it Columbus?
I mean, Columbus would make sense. They're a pretty fast team. You could totally make sense there. I think back of those days in Calgary when he was really good on the score sheet, and you kind of saw like he was like one of those Cy Young guys where he was scoring so many goals, didn't have many assists, but he was he was really good off the rush, and he was really disruptive. To me, he could be this like perfect third line guy. Like, I honestly don't think he belongs higher in a lineup than that, and it's not a knock because you think of all the Stanley Cup champs and how important the third line is and how it gets so overhyped. But like, that role is so important, and I think he's someone who could just be this all situation guy when everything's clicking. It just doesn't all happen at once. And I did think the Oilers were going to be a good fit for him, but it's like not working out team after team after team. So I'm very curious about it. Like, he definitely needs to be that like interesting, speedy, that a guy who can add something in transition. But he needs a good passer with him. I don't think he's dimensional enough past that right now, and I don't know how that one's going to work out.
Speaking of Columbus, up 4-1 on the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is great. Tucked away. Going to win a game back to back. We just ended the Buffalo Sabres winning streak. And next thing you know, Sidney Crosby scoring in overtime. And the Columbus Blue Jackets lose again. What happens here? Like I've wondered about. I had Don Waddell was on the program last week, and we were talking about some of the UFAs on the horizon. Charlie Coyle is one, Boone Jenner, Mason Marchment, etc. And Waddell pretty much said, look, we're going to wait till after the Olympic break. And I don't know if that was code for we're going to see what happens and what offers we get here, or we're really going to take a run at signing these guys after the Olympic break. What do you think happens in Columbus here?
I'm going to be really curious about Jack Greaves' usage. That is what stood out to me about yesterday's game, because I was kind of surprised he got back-to-back starts. And granted, he got back-to-back starts a couple weeks ago. A week ago now? The 20th, 29th he started?
Week ago, yeah.
So I think it was, 6 straight starts, including a string of back-to-backs, and now he was going again. And when you see that third period collapse, like, it wasn't on just him, but, like, I'm not a goalie expert, okay? I don't think you can be a goalie expert unless you're a goalie, but this is me spitballing, okay? Like, let's not take it as gospel. To me, I go, was that goalie fatigue at this point? Like, was that just third period fatigue by him on top of some defensive breakdowns?
He's an incredible athlete, though. I will give that to Jack Greaves. He is a tremendous athlete. And it's funny because I asked Waddell about that, and he talked about, we measure, like, have a look at, like, what the workload was in the previous game. Should we do this back-to-back? I don't know if we're starting to see more of that. Because I know a lot of people in the goalie crowd are like, I don't care what the analytics say. I don't care what the numbers say about this. Like, I want to play back-to-back games. We're going to play back-to-back games. But I don't know. Like, are we seeing more of this? It feels that way. Where it used to be like, there was a stretch there where it was like hard and fast rule. You are not getting back-to-backs.
I don't have an issue with it because we don't see it as often nowadays. But I feel like even just 5 years ago, we were seeing back-to-backs in the playoffs a little bit more often. So if you're a goaltender, you have to be able to do that, right? Like, you have to be, mentally and physically prepared to play back-to-back games if the situation calls for it, even though we don't see it as often now. I don't think there's anything wrong with that in the regular season. I just don't know if this was it, right? Because you're playing, the 20th, 29th, 31st. You got a couple days off, but now you're going back-to-back the 3rd and 4th. I just feel like it was a little bit much here. And I know they didn't have the most challenging outings against Ottawa and Buffalo before that, but I feel like the Penguins are such a strange team this year, and there are some nights they just are popping offensively, and that was it, right? Like, they were trailing 4-1, and I'm not saying you give Greaves the hook before the third period. Absolutely not. But I just look at it and I go, I don't know if you go back to back after you've had someone play that kind of stretch, right? Mm-hmm. Including a different set of back-to-backs. I just think it was a little bit much there. I don't have an issue, though, with goalies getting them here or there. I think it's a different challenge to throw at a goaltender. They should be able to be ready to play in any kind of situation. Like, you can't have it that a goalie has zero experience playing in back-to-backs at this level.
Yep. That's an excellent point. Listen, I know I'm jumping around all over the place here, but that's part of the beauty of when you're on. So let me ask you about Alexander Wennberg and the contract extension yesterday. Now, a lot of people would look at this and say, A, it's too much money. B, look at the production. C, he's 31 years old. I look at it like this. The San Jose Sharks, for the longest time now, have, with their veterans, said, you know what? We'll hang on to them, trade deadline, move them for second round pick, third round pick, whatever. We're recouping picks. This to me was a signal that in San Jose's mind, they're out of that business now. They're done. They're done just having players on the roster to sit there. They can move for picks at the deadline to try to stock the cupboards. So regardless of whether it's Alexander Wennberg or, I don't know, like Jamie Baker coming back to play with the San Jose Sharks, they are out of the we're looking for picks business. Is that how you saw this?
I don't know if they're out of that business entirely, but I don't think it's a bad thing to say this player's not going to be for sale and just settle it now, because I thought last year at the deadline, maybe they went a little bit too far when they went with the Zetterlund trade. Like, that was the one for me. I'm like, did you really need to do that? Did you need to take that extra step here instead of having talent to go around your up and coming players? And he's someone that's young enough to help now and in the future. But you look at it with like the Tyler Toffoli contract too with them. I feel like they've done a very good job figuring out who are going to be this veteran presence, right? This stabilizing veteran presence who's going to be there through this process to help raise the children, essentially, and, just help keep everything afloat. And they happen to be good players. And Wennberg, is he a prolific scorer? Absolutely not, right? This is a guy that sometimes overpasses and, doesn't take the shot when He could, but I also look at it and go, he's someone who could absorb big minutes. He can play in tough situations. He plays center. You could throw him on the wing if you need him to. But if you have, an up-and-comer who isn't ready to play at center, you have that option. I think that's always a good thing because you never want to see a player just exposed just for the sake of exposing them if they're not ready. You need to have options. And he seems like just an overall good presence. So you can't do that with every veteran there. But with this one, why the hell not, right? Because centers are hard to find in the summer. It might not be easy to add play. I get the vibes in San Jose are great, but you never know. Some players want to go for a cup and you can't blame them. So why not keep what you have, what you know works? I have no issue with this one.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. Okay, keeping it bouncing. What do you make of Matthew Schaefer against the Maple Leafs on Saturday? And I don't put too much stock in one very specific moment, but listen, Matthew Schaefer has put together already a really impressive resume so far this season. I'm not going to say that he should have been on Team Canada right out of the hop,
I will.
But you will, based on half a season, you would have put him on Team Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I don't give a shit if he doesn't play a game. Put him as a 7 or 8, but he should be there. Every single time someone goes, no, Schaefer can't go there because he doesn't play matchup minutes. Okay, bet. Here's matchup minutes. And then it's, well, he's not playing well on him. Give him 2 games. Watch him cook. Every single challenge they have thrown at him, he's taken, and he's absolutely thrived. Now imagine him on a team that's not the Islanders. Imagine him on a stacked Team Canada as a third pair guy. I think that he also, say he doesn't play and he's number 7, you probably have a more defensive option as a 7 or 8. So why not have someone super dynamic on the other side of the coin? So if you lose someone who is one of your more dynamic guys, you have that option too. But I like it too as like this next wave of Team Canada. It's not like you're just throwing him there to say, okay, we're going to usher in this next era. No. He's legitimately skilled enough and has proven that he belongs. Now he also gets to practice with Sidney Crosby and get to see what Cam Carr does and get like a taste of Olympic action and experience. So the next time around, he could be the guy on the blue line, which, I mean, he's probably going to be at this rate. So he's been fantastic. I think he's earned it.
As we saw him on Saturday, just turnstiling Morgan Riley for that overtime winner. Tanev is out for the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's not going to be that's not a couple of weeks. That might be it for the season. Sounds like it will be. How do you see Toronto right now?
They're a wreck. I talk a lot about the Leafs. I watch a lot of Leafs. I don't want to watch the Leafs this year. I don't want to talk about the Leafs. They are so boring stylistically. They play a slower game. The roster doesn't do it for me. The top-end guys haven't been consistently strong enough. And I know Matthews did have a good week, and now there's, some injuries too to navigate with Nylander. But this team needs a lot of help, and it just feels like it's a top-down thing. I think that management has gone in the wrong direction. I think the coaching is the wrong direction. I think special teams are an issue. But I still think we're seeing roster holes that it's not surprising they're there. Because even when you had Mitch Marner on your team, you were still missing secondary scoring. And it just felt like they went in the wrong direction. It's not surprising to see them fall it's not surprising to see them fall, but the way that they've done it, how dramatic it's been this year, to me, you got to start resetting for next season at this point because you could go for it. But I look at this roster and go, for what? Another round 1 or round 2 exit? I just don't think this team is going to do anything even if they make the playoffs.
Well, other than the drive, Mrs. Kennedy, how'd you enjoy Dallas? Speaking of big drops, there is none bigger than the Winnipeg Jets. Let me finish up our conversation here on the Winnipeg Jets. It has happened, but not in a 32-team NHL universe, where a team has won 32 games, or won the President's Trophy, and then fallen to last in the NHL. And here's what scares me about Winnipeg. This is a team that has a smaller building. This is a team that has a smaller market. Right now, they have big-ticket long-term contracts on the books. The salary cap is going up, and I don't think, nor does anybody else think, that the Winnipeg Jets are going to be able to keep up with the spending of the other teams that the new salary cap is going to allow. And the point that I was making on the show last week is, if you're not prepared financially to be bad in the NHL for 3 to 5 years, maybe even longer, should you be in the NHL? Essentially what I'm saying is, if your business model is predicated on we are successful every year, that's a business model that doesn't confront reality. How do you see the Winnipeg Jets right now?
Damn, you say I'm harsh. I mean, come on, that's as harsh as you can get. And it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, a little bit there.
Okay.
They're an interesting one because you look at them in October, and I think they were getting results that I don't want to say, listen, it's not easy to win games at this level. So if you win the games, you've earned your wins. But you saw red flags develop, right? Because in the month of October, you look at their 5-on-5 numbers, and the save percentage was really good. Shocker, they have Connor Hellebuck. They were converting on a lot of their shots. And to me, that's not sustainable. Their 5-on-5 numbers across the board were abysmal. Their offensive creation was not good. The defense wasn't good. But you go, okay, they don't have Lowry, they don't have Sandberg, right? So then they lose Hellebuck, and you go, this could be this make or break point of their season because now they're getting healthier. What can you do without Hellebuck there? Can you get it together that when he comes back to a more functional team? And it just hasn't happened. I think the roster construction's part of it. You know, I wasn't that high on Jonathan Toews when they brought him in because I looked at it realistically, and I didn't think he was going to be 2C level. And I know that's harsh, and I know what he was in his peak, but
yeah.
He was removed for so long,
and
it's a lot different coming back when you're Landeskog to Taves. There's a gap in age there. Like, I'm sorry. It's just the reality of the situation. So it felt like it was asking him to carry already a shorthanded second line because they didn't have Ehlers. So it puts more on Perfetti's plate. I don't think he's, risen to the occasion enough, but I also don't think he's had enough support there. So you just see the flaws developing. And then if Lowry's not clicking at 100%, which when he returns, which hasn't been, it's going to weaken the depth even more. So I just look at this team and I think that there's potential because you have Connor Hellebuck, because you have Kyle Connor, because you have Dylan Sandberg. Like, you have some good players there, but they were too quiet last offseason. They had holes, when the season ended. They lost players and they just didn't adequately replace them, and everyone around them's loading up. So it's not an easy situation because you're going to load up to lose to Colorado or Dallas, but they should go for it. They're a team that just has not been aggressive enough when they should have been, right? Like, that was their window, go for it the last few years. And it just felt like they took it way too quietly. And now they're here with these huge contracts. And it's not a good situation because it just feels like everyone around them is that much better right now.
Listen, there's a whole lot of same from last year with the Winnipeg Jets, but same from last year was we would watch the Winnipeg Jets and they'd be down like 3 goals in the second period. And we'd say, they're going to come back. And they're going to win, and they would. And that's what made watching the Winnipeg Jets last year so compelling. Oh, they're down 2 pucks in the third period. Don't worry, watch, they're going to come back. And they would. It was incredible to watch, and they did it on a consistent basis. This year, complete opposite, which is why the one person I worry about most there is Scott Arniel. And I know it's not Winnipeg's MO to do it. But I don't know, Shayna, how long can you wait?
It's the NHL's MO to do. It doesn't matter, right? Like, the average tenures are at around 2 years, I think, is the average going into the season, and we've seen it drop. GMs, their first move is always get rid of the coach instead of facing what the actual issue is. Do I think Arniel's the problem? Not necessarily, because I think last year, even though there were signs of, this might not be sustainable, and it's because of Connor Hellebuck in the regular season, their defensive structure was that good last year. Morrissey and Sandberg obviously led the way, and so did Adam Lowry up front. But, as a whole, this was a better defensive group than they've had in years past. But it just feels like if you're going to play that, lower vent style, you need the offense to really pop. And then it gets weaker as a result of subtractions and you don't do anything for it, right? Even if you're saying, okay, Jonathan Toews is the answer at 2C, what did you do to make this team better offensively than they were last year? Because the offense dried up in the playoffs when they needed it, and they couldn't get past the Stars, who couldn't score a 5-on-5 either. So I don't think Arniel is the problem there. I think it's the roster first, but will I be surprised if the coach goes? No, because that's literally how it goes in this league.
It's the way it goes. Listen, on that, we'll wrap. Thank you as always. Been too long. We got to do it again. So by the way, any pickle updates, any new pickle flavors you found in either salt or chips or both?
No. I was looking, there's pickle ramen, a cup of noodles that's pickle flavored, and I've searched 3 stores for it and I've had no luck, but I always check? Yes. I walk around food stores and I'm like, what is the weirdest shit I can find that I can try? But I wonder if dill is more of a summer thing. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
It's become summer. We'll have to wait. We'll have to wait for the summer extravaganzas here to get our pickle updates. You're the best. We'll check back soon. You be good.
Thanks for having me.
There she is, the great Shayna Goldman from the Too Many Men podcast, and also on The Athletic as well. Dan MacKenzie's going to pop by in about 5 or 6 minutes time. Zack, I want to do your segment here. So I want to spend some time talking to Dan about the passing of Dave Branch. The sheet is powered by FanDuel. Play your game with FanDuel. It's the NHL season, and FanDuel is your home for all the action on the ice. From Blue Line to Bet Slip, we've got you covered all season with unique promos, live offerings, and more features to let you play your game. Missed puck drop? No sweat. With a live same-game parlay, you can build up your bets until the final buzzer. Download FanDuel Sportsbook today and play your game. Please play responsibly. 18 plus and physically located in Ontario. If you have questions or concerns about your gambling or the gambling of someone close to you, please contact Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. Outdo yourself, young man.
Okay, this one I couldn't fit on a graphic because it's long, but I'm going to same game parlay something that's really, really, really dumb, which is saying something given what we've done here, okay?
You can't even say it yourself.
I don't like my bread cold, but my radish, I like that cool.
Oh,
Panarin?
No. Oh, no. Darren Radish. Yeah.
Daniil Butt.
Cheeks.
Will Cooley. Yes. I don't like my bread, Panarin, cold.
Yeah.
But my radish, I like it cool. Will Cooley.
So you got the 4.
The 4, all to score in this game. I figured we might as well start the week off with just an all-time long shot. $5 pays $1,365 today.
Wow. Congratulations. That is impressive. I'm curious to hear back from FanDuel what they think of this unique offering from you today. One of these is going to hit, man, and you're going to be a genius, and we're not going to see you for 2 weeks. But one of these is going to pop. One of these is going to pop for you.
We had one come through, and it wasn't mine, so that was from John Banker in the chat.
That was good.
But we've come close a couple of times, including the Never Leave Me Blue Susie Q. That one was close, but we need to see more get through the uprights.
Hey, did you have, as we're stand by here for the president of the CHL, Dan MacKenzie, talking about the passing of Dave Branch. What did you make of the suspensions on the weekend? Logan Stanley, the one game for the sucker punch. Although I kind of quibble with sucker punch in that situation on Brady Tkachuk. But John Beecher, make no mistake about it, like that was a sucker punch on Michael McCarron, who was being held. Joe Mahan was the other linesman there. And I know he kind of gets blocked and Beecher gets a clean shot in on McCarron. I'm not trying to absolve John Beecher whatsoever. In this situation, like McCarron and Beecher are starting to go after it. And then Travis Garolitz, who's the other official there, totally wraps up McCarron. And if you have a look at number 89, linesman 89, that's Joe Mahan. Played junior hockey with the Portland Winterhawks. Big, strong linesman, but he doesn't grab a hold of John Beecher. All I'm saying is, Beecher's got to be more responsible than that. Like, it's a stupid play. But secondly, it's one that I'm sure that Joe Mahan probably wants to have back. Probably could have done maybe a better job trying to wrap up Beecher so he couldn't get that shot in. Kevin Collins was an official in the NHL, linesman, who a lot of the players really didn't like, because when there's a fight going on, you've seen this a million times, the linesmen will collaborate on when they go in, because they both have to go in at the same time. Because there's nothing worse than an official grabbing one and leaving the other guy with his arms free to throw. And Collins, a lot of the players used to feel, was always jumping the gun and getting in on that one. Again, not absolving Beecher whatsoever. I just wonder if in that situation, the official could have been more proactive trying to wrap up John Beecher, and we wouldn't have had this situation at all.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think if you if you suspend one, you kind of got to do both, because they just happen to arise at the same time. Not the same severity, but I think that it's just kind of a uncomfortable situation, which I know that NHL D-Ops is not going to be looking at it and being like, well, what makes us comfortable or uncomfortable coming out of this? But you get the Stanley one and the Beecher at the same time. It just makes it it makes it easier to like digest as a fan to be like, well, you got both.
Oh,
okay.
Like,
and then
again, like,
so it's fine.
I'm not absolving John Beecher of doing that. I'm not.
Yeah,
All I'm saying is, like, if you're, if you're you're Stephen Walkom, head of the NHL officials, you're probably saying, like, you got to get in there. You got to get in there. Again, like, it's not that official's fault, but still, one guy's getting wrapped up, the other needs to get wrapped up too.
I'm going to say something that might be controversial or piss off some Sens fans, so I'm ready for this. But the Logan Stanley one as well, I'm with you. I'm not absolving Logan Stanley of any wrongdoing in the incident with him and Brady Tkachuk. But what I will say is this is not a surprising outcome of this situation. I love both Tkachuk brothers. I would die to have the Tkachuk brothers play on my team. That said, they know what they're doing, they know what they're getting into, and baiting somebody in and trying to draw this out and doing the whole why, how could you do that to me act. I get it, it's effective, I got no problem with that, but every now and then I feel like there's going to be somebody pop up who just says, fuck it, I'm going to swing. And
protect yourself.
Yourself. Stanley did that.
Protect yourself.
I saw it coming.
Yeah, that one, again, like, it's a suspension, 100% going away. It's a sucker punch, but you're engaged with Brady Tkachuk. What do you think's going to happen? The old saying, I'd rather be, judged by 12 than carried by 6. Like, this is, I know Logan Stanley's tough on his own and probably could have, squared up, but again, it's Brady Tkachuk that you're in there with, and we've seen him do that before. So I look at that situation and say, again, that is a suspension. That was the right call by the Department of Player Safety. Having said that, I'm not surprised that that's what the outcome was. It's funny, I was doing the Hockey Lifers podcast with Bruce Boudreau this morning, and we were talking about that situation specifically, and he was saying the same thing. It's like, who you're in there with. Like, Logan Stanley's not dumb. And the other thing is, too, like, I don't think that the Tkachuks do anything by accident. I don't think the Tkachuks do anything frivolously. Like, this family knows what they're doing. This family has lived it, eaten it, breathed it on the ice for decades in the NHL. Brady Tkachuk knows exactly what he's doing in that situation. Does he know that he's going to eat one because of it? Yeah, maybe not, but he knows at that time, like, he's probably luring Logan Stanley into something here. And again, if you're Logan Stanley, you're probably saying to yourself, as you're along the boards, and you're engaged with Brady Tkachuk, holy smokes, this is Brady Tkachuk I'm engaged in. There's a good chance that this might end up in a fight. And if I'm going to fight Brady Tkachuk, since he is such a beast, I want to land the first punch. I want to get in there first. I don't want to wait and see what happens. This is spur of the moment, and this guy's super tough, and I want to get the first shot in before anything else happens. We're standing by, trying to locate Dan MacKenzie right now, the president of the CHL. I just want to offer a couple of words here, just in case Dan isn't able to join us. For those of you who don't know who Dave Branch was the OHL commissioner going back to 1979. For many, he's the only commissioner that the Ontario Hockey League ever had. There he is with Gilles Courteau and Ron Robison. I don't remember an OHL until Brian Crawford took over that didn't have Dave Branch in it and Dave Branch as part of it. He took the Ontario Hockey League to great heights and established franchises with solid ownerships and academic scholarships for players. That's his last one, with Saginaw winning the Memorial Cup. From my point of view, Dave was someone that I talked to on a pretty regular basis. He would always answer calls, and if he couldn't, he would always call you back. He always had an answer and an explanation for you. Junior hockey was obviously a love and a passion for him. He was someone that was in it for the long haul, and was always had sort of the players at the front of his mind, even though at the same time he did an incredible job bringing in very sophisticated and financially stable ownership into the Ontario Hockey League at the forefront of his mind. And there is with young Tyler Seguin. He always had the players' interests, whether it was mental health, whether it was, part of his legacy positions towards the end of his career with curbing violence in junior hockey. That was always what Dave was in it for. As the president of the Canadian Hockey League, he helped take the Memorial Cup tournament to new heights. Under a lot of this leadership, we saw the expansion of the junior hockey leagues into the United States. And this is a tremendous loss. Even Dave hadn't been the commissioner of the OHL. Now that's Brian Crawford. Even though he hasn't been the president of the CHL, that is, of course, Dan MacKenzie. The presence of Dave Branch will always loom large over all three Canadian hockey leagues, and specifically the Ontario Hockey League. He was also a coach in the Whitby Minor Hockey Association. And that was one of his pet passions as well. It wasn't just, the OHL, but I'll tell you what, one of the cool things that Dave was able to do, was, the OHL Cup. And for those who don't know, the OHL Cup invitational tournament for the top teams across U16, minor, midget, call it whatever you want, to compete for a trophy at the end of the seasons, to compete for the OHL Cup trophy, because that's essentially where, top teams from all around Ontario and the United States as well, that's where all the players were coming from to join the OHL. That is hands down, full stop, one of my favorite tournaments to watch. And you can make the argument that at that level, the U16 and then in through junior hockey, that's probably the place where there's still some innocence about hockey, where it's not a job yet. It's right before it becomes a job for players, but at that point it's still not a job. At that point, it's still fun. And I think that, and I'll end on this, and a lot of this was because of Dave Branch, and he brought a lot of players back into the league, and a lot more players, I think, now that Zack Hyman has bought a team with his family in Brantford, I think we'll start to see more. I think a lot of, hang on, I think we have Dan. I think we'll see, hang on. I think we'll start to see more, and I think that's why a lot of NHL players have gone back to own junior hockey franchises, and we expect to see more of them as well. Zach, do we have Dan MacKenzie standing by? I know it's kind of like a last minute sort of scramble to get the CHL president on board. Okay, excellent. Let's join with Dan now. He is the president of the Canadian Hockey League on a very sad day around junior hockey in Canada. Dan MacKenzie joins me now. Dan, first of all, thanks for joining me. I know it's a scrambly day for everybody as everyone mourns the passing of Dave Branch at the age of 77. Dave was someone to me that, kind of like you as well, every time I called, there'd be an answer or a follow-up phone call. He was always open and loved talking about junior hockey. And more than anything else, he loved talking about the kids. I want to get to that in a couple of seconds, but your thoughts initially on the passing of Dave Branch.
Well, Jeff, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, it is definitely a sad day for all of us at the CHL and in the hockey world. We lost a legend today. He was, the CHL would not be where it is today without David Branch. There's no doubt about that. And you talked about the kids, and so I started in 2019, had the opportunity to really learn under David for the first couple of years. As you know, I didn't come from the hockey world, and I would say the one thing that was just a constant discussion point whenever we would talk about things, his first question was always, what about the kids? How's this going to affect the player? And whether we were talking about issues that were on ice, that were off ice, that was always top of mind. Mm-hmm. And I think that'll be probably his greatest legacy.
You know, one of the things that I always admired and I always appreciate, I mean, I'm the same way with you, and I have like a million goofy ideas for things at all times, and he would always entertain all of them. You know, I can't tell you how many times, like, here's what you got to do with the Memorial Cup. Here's what you got to do with J. Ross Robertson. And he was like, he would always give you time. And then he would sort of always give you like the bigger picture too. Like that's what I always admired about Dave. Every conversation I had with him, there would be the issue, and the Dave would like take it full scope and go, but here's what you also need to consider. And I think part of that was because he had the dual portfolio. He was a commissioner of the OHL, but also the president of the CHL, and he wore those hats, and it kind of was a juggling act sometimes. But Dave was always great at the big picture, eh, Dan? Like always, like every conversation. Yes, but here's the big picture. He was great at that.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, you know, in this world of you and I live in the world of social media, and you know, there's hot takes on everything, and people are responding right away. And Dave was the master of, hey, let's be cautious. Let's look at the big picture. Let's, you know, identify how, you know, this decision is going to affect that decision or that relationship, or, you know, the world we live in, especially at the CHL level. It's not sometimes as simple as it seems. There's implications across a variety of, again, relationships, people, organizations. And so Dave was the master at sort of stepping back and you know, measuring his words, because they carried a ton of weight coming from someone like him. So I think that's one of the things I'll take away from, you know, from getting the opportunity to watch him work.
You know, as you all know, junior hockey is my first love, and he's really the only commissioner of the OHL that I really ever knew until he stepped away and Brian Crawford took over. And I think back to, like, you know, the early days of going to watch the Marlboros at Maple Leaf Gardens in the afternoon, and Bruce Dowie was my hero. And I look at, you know, where junior hockey is now, and I think about things like academic scholarships, and I think about work around mental health, and I think about all the different things that Dave initiated. A lot of the legacy positions towards the end of his tenure around, you know, reduction in on ice violence, and specifically fighting. Like when you look around and think about the legacy of Dave Branch, like what are the touch points for you? Because those are some of the ones for me.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of the really important ones. I think the scholarship for the OHL scholarship program, and ultimately the CHL scholarship program across all three leagues, I think is one that David really, really believed in, and you know, talked a lot about. You know, of course, like we like to talk about, you know, I'm down in Minnesota, the guys on the ice who were on the ice last night from the CHL, and the best of the best, but you know, less than 5% of players who play in the CHL make a career in the NHL. And Dave was really concerned about the other 95%. So and you'd see it when you walk around an arena with him. Like you could not walk around an arena with him in 5 minutes. He would get stopped. Mr. Branch. And you talk to him, he said, oh yeah, you know, that's such and such as, you know, a father who he played in our league back in the 2005, and now so-and-so, now he's coaching in Whitby or whatever. You know what I mean? Like he had so many relationships, and it wasn't just about the elite guys. And I think that's where, you know, when I think about the legacy, and I think about, again, the scholarship program, when I think about some of the off-ice programs, I chatted today with one of our owners, the owner in Saginaw, Craig Goslin, who was sort of on the ground when the Talk Today program got off the ground, you know, on the heels of a really tragic situation down there a few years ago with Terry Trafford. And he was just sort of reminiscing about how Dave's humanity really came out during that week when he was down there in Saginaw. You know, when I think of Dave, you know, we'll think about, you know, the hockey guy and the, you know, the big picture legacy things. But at the end of the day, I mean, he was just a good man, you know?
He was a good man. And you know where I really saw it? I mean, and I understand from a player's point of view, and their parents and the agents, you know, the issue of exceptional status. And we see it in all three leagues. And I remember every time that I would talk to Dave about, like, oh, how come this guy didn't get in? And this guy, like, what's wrong with, you know, Tag Bertuzzi and Graham Clark and Jack Hughes and Owen Power and all this like stuff? It's like, and Dave would always say, well, there's the player and there's the person. And we have to be sensitive to the person. Like playing junior hockey, like mentally you have to have a certain level of maturity too that goes into it. I know the knee jerk might just be get all the best kids in the league no matter what, but Dave would always be sensitive to this might be good for us, but long term, is this good for that player? That always stuck with me, Dan. Always stuck with me.
Well, and he really was, I think, a champion of making sure that exceptional player status included not just the hockey. I mean, that was an important part of it. And I mean, it's funny. I'm down here at the juniors, and I was talking to somebody today, and when we got the news about Dave's passing, and you sort of forget when you see it now, and you see how big this tournament is, but. And this person reminded me that in the beginning, the World Junior Tournament had a team from the CHL that would represent that would represent Canada at the World Juniors.
Yeah,
and that it wasn't until it would have been Dave Branch, Gilles Courteau, and I don't know if it was Ron Robinson or maybe Ed Chenault, but they had to go back and they had to convince the owners of their junior hockey teams to let their best players and their coaches and training staff go for a month.
Yep.
I mean, think how hard that would be. But
release your best players. Release your best players
for the good of the game and for the good of their development. I mean, you look back now and you think, oh yeah, it's always been this way. But it took those kinds of decisions and that kind of foresight, and I can tell you, those kinds of decisions are not easy. To move some of those rooms, and Dave was a master of that, being able to do that. And that's just one example. You could talk about 10 different things that are part of our game now that we just take for granted. That when you look back and you look at the origins of it, it would have been tough, and you needed strong visionary leadership to get some of these things across the finish line. And guys like Dave, Gilles, Ron, Bob Nicholson, like some of these folks, they did yeoman's work. On some of these issues, and we take them for granted now.
1977 would have been the first one. The junior tournament was they did have a U20 before that, but IIHF didn't sanction. Just for all of our viewers, what Dan is talking about, the IIHF didn't sanction until 1977, and Canadian Junior Hockey would send the Memorial Cup champions. So the first one was the St. Catharines Finn Cups, and it was John Anderson and Dale McCourt. It's funny, I just had Don Waddell on the program, GM of the Blue Jackets, and he played for USA in 1977, and they still glow about this. It was the first tournament in Czechoslovakia. I am curious, as I'll let you go on this one, because I know you have a really busy day here and games to get to. What have the conversations been around the World Juniors today with the news of the passing of Dave Branch? Is there anything you can share, how people are talking about him, any stories that you can share about Dave, any sort of common themes?
Yeah, I've had a bunch today. I think that just a lot of respect, like a lot of respect for the tenure, the legacy. These jobs aren't easy, and a guy like Dave who was so successful for so long, just a real pro would be the way to put it. And I think lots of respect. And I think when you talk to, and then the stories, and David Hart was a hockey man, and so I was actually chatting with Gilles Courteau earlier. I chatted with Bob Nicholson, and nice. Some of the guys who he was with sort of coming through, and some of the stories are just legendary. And I remember when we were up in so in terms of the retirements of our commissioners, Gilles went first, and then Ron, and then Dave, and so I remember us being up at one of our board meetings in Quebec City, and we were celebrating Gilles' tenure with the CHL, and after the dinner, we were all sort of sitting around a table, and those sitting around listening to those three guys, Bruce Hamilton, Brent Sutter, it was just wild hearing the stories, and and Dave, you could see the joy in Dave's face. It was like he was in his element that night, sitting at a table, talking hockey, and it wasn't all about the past. It was about, it was a lot of about the future too. Like he was always thinking about the next thing, and what its impact on junior hockey was going to be, what its impact on the player was going to be. Like, it was pretty neat to see.
I believe it. We've lost a great person. Dan, thanks so much for stopping by. I know you're busy. Thanks for taking time out for my program today. Really appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, Jeff.
There he is. Dan MacKenzie is the president of the Canadian Hockey League, a position formerly held by the now late Dave Branch, who passed away Sunday evening at the age of 77. Okay, thanks for hanging out. I know we went a little bit overtime today, but I wanted to make sure we had a chance to talk about Dave Branch. Someone who I really enjoyed talking to and really enjoyed dealing with. We never, like, when you do this job, you never always see eye to eye with someone in Dave's position. There were plenty of times when Dave was annoyed with me, and there were plenty of times where, Dave didn't do things that I necessarily thought was great. But at the basis of everything, was always a mutual respect, and I spent way more days, having great times and great conversations with Dave Branch than otherwise. He was a visionary. He was a pioneer in a lot of ways. He was a really smart person who had hockey's best interests at heart and at mind at all times. The game got poor when he exited his titles, and the game is poor now that he is no longer with us. Dave Branch passing away at the age of 77. Thanks to Dan MacKenzie for stopping by to share some of his thoughts and his perspective on the career of Dave Branch. Thanks to Shayna Goldman from The Athletic and the Too Many Men podcast. And also thanks to Mats Sundin, who we recorded yesterday, for stopping by the show today. We're back tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern, with Greg Wyshynski from ESPN and ESPN.com. In the meantime, enjoy, if you're watching the juniors, Canada face off against Finland for the bronze and Czechia taking on Sweden. That's the new Canada-US matchup for the gold medal. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Jeff Marek along with you. Hope you enjoyed the program today. If you did, or maybe even if you didn't, they can't all be gems, folks. Please hit the subscribe button. Also a reminder, every morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, Johnny Lazarus, Colby Cohen, I call them the Impact Players. You might know them as a tandem that makes up the Morning Cup of Hockey. Also DFO Live at noon Eastern. This year, your host Tyler Yaremchuk alongside Carter Hutton. Full day's worth of programming right here on Daily Faceoff, your favorite YouTube hockey channel. And as a reminder as well, Zach Phillips, our producer here for The Sheet,